That should be good for retention. A woman spent months telling people she was pregnant. She had a due date, a nursery, maternity photos, a gender reveal, an ultrasound image, and even a name for the baby. Then, on the morning of October 9th, 2020, a Texas state trooper pulled over a vehicle that was driving erratically. What he found inside was not the future Taylor Parker was building for 9 months. Investigators were not looking at one bad lie told at the wrong time. They were looking at an entirely fake future. Props, photos, a nursery, a party, a hospital plan. There was a man who genuinely thought he was about to become a father. That fake future ran directly into a real family. Taylor Renee Parker was living in East Texas and dated Wade Griffin. Their relationship began in 2019. In January of 2020, Parker told Wade that she was pregnant. Years earlier, after an ectopic pregnancy and surgery, doctors had removed Parker's uterus, cervix, and one ovary. She knew she could not carry another child. That was a part of the evidence later presented in court. Trial witnesses described Parker as being intensely focused on keeping Wade Griffin in the relationship. The state introduced evidence that she had gone through serious lengths to do that. Then came the pregnancy announcement. Wade was told that the baby was a girl. A name was selected, Braxlynn. A due date appeared. Eventually, there was a room inside Wade's house waiting for her. From Wade's perspective, it was no longer an abstract claim. There was a baby with a name, a timeline, and a nursery. The thing is, the pregnancy wasn't even the first time that the relationship was surrounded by a made-up life. The court record describes earlier stories that prosecutors used to show the lengths that Parker would go to keep Wade close. A real estate broker testified that back in 2019, a woman identifying herself as Taylor Parker, or Taylor Griffin, asked about buying roughly 1,500 acres of land in Bowie County. The price was around $4.7 million. When the broker asked how she planned on paying for it, he was told that she was the heir to a syrup company, not a small business, not, my family has some money, a syrup fortune large enough to buy a huge ranch. That deal never happened, but it ended up in the court records because prosecutors argued it was part of a broader pattern. Parker presenting a full life of wealth, emergencies, obligations, and future promises that kept Wade pulled in. Another witness described a story Parker told after she and Wade fought after a party and spent a few days apart. Parker said that her mother hired a Mexican mafia to kill her. According to the witness, Wade had heard the story and felt like that he couldn't leave Parker. While something like that serious was happening, and so the relationship resumed. The Court of Criminal Appeals later discussed those stories because the state had offered them as motive and intent evidence, not random gossip. The prosecution's theory was not that every strange lie proved the murder itself. It was that the pregnancy fit documented patterns. Huge, hard-to-check stories that made Wade feel like he couldn't leave. He was responsible for staying. Then, Parker made the biggest promise she could make. A baby. Parker didn't keep the story alive because she was hoping she could make one blurry Facebook post and everybody who was watching had bad vision. According to the Texas Courts of Criminal Appeals, she bought a silicone moon belly online. She got a customized ultrasound. She prepared a nursery in Wade's home. She took maternity photos. She had a gender reveal party. And she chose a name. That is a ridiculous amount of infrastructure for something that didn't exist. A fake belly is not just a prop. It has to work at the grocery store, family get-togethers, in pictures, at parties, and around the person you live with. An ultrasound is not just a printout. It is a piece of medical-looking evidence that somebody could point to. And a nursery is not just a purchase. It is an entire room sitting there every day telling Wade, the baby's coming. The fake pregnancy now has a set design budget? And it kept spreading into other people's lives. Maternity photos survive. Gender reveal parties create witnesses. People remember who showed up, what got announced, and the fact that everybody was celebrating a baby they were about to meet. Pregnancy is easy to share because everybody wants to be happy for you. Show a photo, mention a due date, and people will fill in the rest. Parker took advantage of that. The fake baby was not just called the baby. She had a name people could use. Braxlynn. Once a freaking name enters the group chat, It stops feeling like an idea. It starts feeling like a person everybody is waiting to meet. But the story wasn't as airtight as Wade thought. At trial, Parker's mother knew she couldn't be pregnant because of the hysterectomy. She said she learned about the claimed pregnancy after receiving a screenshot of a Facebook post tied to the gender reveal. She asked Parker what she was supposed to tell people who thought she was becoming a grandmother again. Parker's answer was basically, "You are." Other warnings were circulating too. Parker's mother testified that days before the murder, Wade's mother called and asked if Parker could actually be pregnant. Parker's mother said it couldn't be possible. Parker's aunt testified that she was trying to get that information to somebody close to Wade. This was not a lie hidden behind a locked diary. It was running through a small social group where people had doubts. Pieces of information were resurfacing, and Wade still believed the person he was with. That does not make the other people responsible for what Parker did. It shows how far the story had already traveled before it reached the one day Parker could not keep moving. At this point, the lie needs a continuity department. There's another detail that matters because it makes the final turn even worse. Parker knew Reagan Simmons-Hancock. Reporting on the case says that Parker had photographed Reagan's wedding. The two continued seeing each other after that. Reagan was 21 years old. She was pregnant, and Parker knew she was pregnant. By late September of 2020, Parker's due date had passed. No baby arrived, so Parker gave Wade a new date. October 5th. She said that she was going to be induced or have a C-section at Titus Medical Center in Mount Pleasant, Texas. Wade had something concrete to wait for now. October 5th. A hospital. A delivery plan. The end of the fake pregnancy was supposed to be the beginning of a real newborn life. Instead, that morning, Wade's house caught on fire. He put it out with a water hose. Later that same morning, Titus Regional Hospital received a bomb threat and had to evacuate. The court opinion documents both events. Parker blamed them on her mother and told Wade that she had to change hospitals. She said that she would go to McCurtain Memorial Hospital in Idabel, Oklahoma instead. The supposed birth plan had moved from Mount Pleasant to a house fire, to a bomb threat, to family blaming accusations, and then to a hospital across state lines. Every new event bought Parker more time, but it did not get her a baby. 4 days later, on October 9th, Parker sends Wade towards Winewood, Oklahoma to drop off hogs. Then he was supposed to meet with her at the hospital in Idabel. Wade left believing he had a practical errand to run before meeting his daughter. Parker didn't go to Idabel. According to the court record, she arrived at Reagan Simmons-Hancock's home at about 7:30 in the morning. Reagan was killed. Her unborn daughter, Braxlynn, was removed. The court record goes in much more detail about the physical details. We're not going to talk about them here. What matters is Parker went to the home of a pregnant woman that she knew while Wade was headed to the opposite direction, expected to meet the baby Parker promised him for about 9 months. The timeline after that is why the case tightened so fast. The cell tower data showed Parker leaving the area of Reagan's home between 9:09 and 9:14 that morning. At 9:36, Trooper Lee Shaver stopped Parker after seeing her drive erratically, speed, and nearly hit another vehicle. When he approached the car, he saw an umbilical cord running into Parker's pants. He saw a newborn that wasn't breathing. 2 ambulances were called. Parker and Braxlynn were transported to McCurtain Memorial Hospital. A paramedic later testified that Parker said her water broke while she was driving and that the baby had simply come out of the car. But the scene did not match the story. The paramedic who examined the baby noticed that the amniotic fluid was already dried and flaky. He testified that there was no blood or amniotic fluid in the car or on the seat that would match the birth had just happened there. When paramedics cut the cord, they noticed that the blood already began separating and clotting. They started CPR and emergency treatment. During transport, they got a pulse back. At the hospital, Braxlynn was still in critical condition. She was later pronounced dead. Parker was arrested at the hospital. The paramedic also testified that Parker stayed focused on one specific demand. The baby had to go to Idabel. That is the same hospital she had given Wade after the October 5th plan collapsed. Even during an emergency, the fake pregnancy itinerary was still sitting there. The ambulance crew treated it exactly how it was. A medical emergency. They worked on Braxlynn the entire 34-minute transportation and regained a pulse. That detail later mattered in court. The defense challenged whether the state had proven Braxlynn was alive when Parker took her. The paramedic testimony, the restored heartbeat, and the doctor's testimony became part of the record that answered that question. Once investigators laid the timeline out, The fake pregnancy stopped being a part of the background. It became the roadmap. They did not have to guess on what Parker had been trying to do on October 9th. They had 9 months of dated evidence. The January pregnancy announcement, the silicone belly, the customized ultrasound, the maternity shoot, the gender reveal, the nursery at Wade's house, the name Braxlynn, the due date in late September, the October 5th delivery plan, the house fire, the bomb threat, the sudden move to Idabel, and the hog errand that sent Wade in the complete opposite direction in the morning Parker drove to Alvord. Each individual item may sound weird on their own, but together they create a timeline, an outline of somebody trying to reach one exact statement. She needed to show Wade a baby. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals later described the state's case as Parker killing Reagan in the course of committing or attempting to commit kidnapping of Braxlynn. That is the legal shape of the charge. But in plain human terms, the jury had to look at a horrifyingly simple chain. A woman told her boyfriend that she was pregnant, even though she couldn't be. She built proof around that story. She claimed a due date had passed. She kept moving the delivery plan. Then, on the morning she was supposed to appear at a hospital in Oklahoma, she went to the home of a pregnant woman she knew. The trial happened in Bowie County in November of 2022. The jury heard from people that had been pulled into the fake pregnancy. The boyfriend who believed he was becoming a father. People who knew about the pregnancy claim. Medical responders who encountered Parker on the road. The prosecution did not treat the belly, the ultrasound, or the nursery as random weirdness. Those details were their timeline. They showed the jury that October 9th did not come out of nowhere. The appeal later focused on that narrow but important legal question. Was Braxlynn alive for the kidnapping element of the capital murder charge? Paramedics testified that after emergency treatment, they were able to restore a pulse. A doctor testified that, based on the timing, they would not have been able to restore a heartbeat if that baby had been unalive for that entire period. Other medical testimony described Braxlynn as viable. The appeals court held that the evidence was sufficient for a rational jury to find that Braxlynn was born alive and that Parker had kidnapped or attempted to kidnap her. The court upheld Parker's conviction and death sentence in 2025. This case did not turn on one dramatic gotcha moment. It turned on timestamps, medical testimony, witnesses, physical evidence, and months of a lie being documented in real time. Taylor Parker was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. Texas prison records list her on death row. In June of 2026, Netflix had released Maternal Instinct, bringing the case back into public view. The fake pregnancy was so complete before it collapsed. None of the pieces of the case were just decoration. They were all a part of a future somebody else was asked to believe in. And when that future did not survive the due date, every single piece of it became evidence. Alright guys, comment down below which detail of this case made you freaking lose it. And please subscribe for more stories because I'm ready to give them to you. Thank you guys so much. Peace.